Chapter 4 The Sentry. After what seemed like minutes but was probably much less, he heard the same pleasant humming sound, and a square pillar of white light with blue dancing specks shot down from the same spot. A stocky figure, bursting with white light, descended in it, as if it was a teleportation beam. Minuscule, almost imperceptible sky-blue particles swam furiously all around his form in an outline. The man was wearing a uniform made out of a thin layer of dancing blue particles. It had a tunic with a white belt, matching long sleeves, and shin-high boots. There was a heavy white cape that hung down almost to the floor. It was an outfit straight out of the medieval times, and Michael wondered where this guy had come from. There was a gray amulet on the man's chest. It had an illuminated blue diamond-looking crystal embedded at its center, and all around the crystal was the same sun insignia he had seen on the tunnel door. All the wavy sun spires were lit up, and all the straight-edged outer compass points were lit up. What did it all mean? Their mysterious visitor landed gently and touched the amulet. The pillar shot up through the ceiling like he had turned on a light-sucking vacuum positioned above the house. The man had olive skin and was about 6 feet 2 inches, with hands and forearms that were unusually large for his body. His noble, broad face smiled, and the glowing uniform disappeared, revealing a modern-looking outfit that included a plain black t-shirt, jeans, and a rugged brown leather jacket with an understated collar and several zip pockets. Michael's mom gasped, as if she hadn't seen him until that moment, and she said, her voice cracking, "Peter? But I'm confused." The man, who was apparently his dad's spy in training, Peter, nodded and spoke, his voice resonant and full. "Yes, Julia, it's me. I received my assignment as a sentry from King Dayan some time ago, and it began with military service alongside your husband. But you must know that all I have done has been genuine and motivated by a desire to serve my king and your son and his family in any way necessary. I don't know what the future holds for you, Michael, but the fact that the king has sent a guardian commander as your sentry should be an indicator that he expects great things from you. This is all very unusual. I was not expecting to be summoned. I knew that your anointing would happen today, but I am surprised to see you wearing a squire ring. Where did that come from?" Before Michael could respond, his mom said, "Unfortunately, we're not allowed to tell anyone where we got it. Sorry." Peter was studying Michael carefully and said, "You have piqued my curiosity, young squire, especially since my son Sylvan also received a squire ring in an unusual way, and we never knew why. His was given to him by Captain Gabriel shortly after his anointing day." Peter gave a slight bow and continued, "I'm sorry to learn that Spencer did not make it here with you. Please tell me everything that happened to him." There was something formal in the way he talked, as if he were thinking carefully about everything he said. Michael related the events surrounding his dad's capture. Peter had been standing quietly, his large eyes intent, and said, "I know that what you have been through seems like a lot to take in, but I must warn you that there will continue to be danger and trials as long as the Legion has any amount of power in this world. This is why you must be protected and prepare to take your place in the Order. That is why I'm here. I am Commander Pedir Olgath of the Order of Lithegol, from the Hercule realm within the Northern Triad, and I am your Mentor Sentry. My assignment is to protect you, tutor you, and deliver you for training and advancement. The fortress of Camelot is where you will prepare to become an apprentice knight and enter the Order of Lithegol." He had pronounced his name differently, not Peter like the standard name one would hear, but Pedir. What an odd name. The commander smiled and, as if reading his mind, said, "But you can call me Peter. This is how all in this world refer to me, except for Captain Gabriel, the overseer, but he is a different type altogether." Michael recognized something from what Peter had said and asked, "Did you just say Camelot? Isn't that tied to the legend of King Arthur? Was Arthur real?" "Yes, he was, and is still very real," Peter replied. "He is a prince of Lithegol. His father, King Dayan, sent him to lead the Order in the Great War of the Meridian Times around 1500 years ago. This was a key war in that Drakir and the Legion were poised to overrun Prime, and ultimately Camelot, and seized the most important core world in the kingdom, Earth. But they were no match for Prince Arthur and the power of Solus. Now you get to follow in his legacy and become a Knight of the Round." Michael's mom was gazing proudly at her son. Michael thought of his dad and said, "But I can't do that without my dad. We have to go and rescue him before we go to Camelot. I'm not going without him." Peter took this statement in as if he had been expecting it and responded, "The thing that you must understand is that Camelot is not in your dimension. It's in Avalon, where time stops as it relates to your world. We can go to Camelot, where you can finish your apprentice training and prepare for what feels like months, while in your world no time will have passed by. You must trust me, Michael." "Okay, that sounds crazy, but given what I've already seen, I believe it. So what is an apprentice anyway?" Michael asked. "You have received this ring as an indication that you are ready to be made a squire," Peter answered. "Your next step will be to receive your training in preparation to enter the order. Knights and matrons enter the Order of Lithegol as an apprentice, and advance in the ranks to become a master and then a commander. Beyond that is an overseer knight, but only 13 overseers exist at any given time in the entire kingdom." There was so much he didn't know. "So where is this Lithegol, and what is that strange light with the flecks in it, and why can't my mom see my ring?" Peter responded, "Lithegol is the kingdom that encompasses 13 living realms, including Prime, where embodied beings dwell on each respective realm's core world. A core world is the living planet within each realm, like Earth is for Prime. Each realm has its own set of knights and matrons with special gifts. Each realm also has an overseer knight, assisted by a head matron, to lead and protect its people. The particle-filled light is the power of Solus. Solus is the essence power of all that is good and life-giving in the universe." This was all so hard to fathom, and Michael asked, "How are these people from the other realms different from us, and can they come to Earth?" Peter answered, "Yes, they are much like humans from Earth, but they are from different races, including the elves, the dwarves, the fairies, and my race, the giants. They can travel to Earth using special corridors. Imagine light-based teleportation tunnels that transport someone from one realm to another. The ring, band, and orb that I wear, which are called tokens, are made of solite essence material. We are accustomed to how everything around us is solid and physical, but essence is the other stuff that makes up all living things. It is the true source of life. The essence crystal embedded in our tokens is how we harness and direct the Solus. I assume that Julia was unable to see your squire ring because it was activated in response to your solite signature. Each of us has a unique essence signature. Think of it like a fingerprint, but tied to our living essence body. The crystal was probably flashing, correct?" Michael nodded. The missing pieces were coming together in his mind. Peter pointed to Michael's ring and said, "The ring tokens contain a unique crystal with 6 refined facets surrounding a pointed section. The facets are tied to the soul sword, a shield, the uniform and armor, communication, the hoven, and the cloaking mechanism. Each token must have this cloaking refinement to keep the soulgons from seeing them, although some of the more powerful soulgons can still sense the presence of Solus. The pointed crystal section within the center of the ring goes through a lesser stage of refinement called skimming, which allows for it to be used to form various essence weapons and objects when needed. A raw essence crystal without any refinements can be seen by anyone and has the characteristics of a solid object. All of the tokens are created using only refined solite crystals, and therefore will never be seen by anyone unless that person has been given the ability to see essence material. It is similar to how only certain frequencies of light are visible to the human eye. The ring and the other tokens are what typically provide this ability. So normally you wouldn't have seen it either, but you did because it was assigned to you. Sometimes tokens and those objects cloaked by them can be shown to us when there is a special need. A powerful knight or matron can also display certain essence objects to those that are blind to them when appropriate." Peter pulled out a gray bracelet with a tiny crystal on it and said, for now your mother can wear what we call an illuminator band. This doesn't provide her with the same powers as that of a squire, but it will allow her to view those things encased in an essence aura. The illuminator band is made from amethyte and a small forethite crystal. Unlike the other essence crystals, amethyte can be handled by anyone who has been given the ability to interact with the essence world around them. Think of when you picked up the ring. You probably felt the living essence energy buzzing in your hand. Then you were able to authenticate with it. That was the clicking sound you heard. Once that happened, the amethyte drew the ring onto your finger. That's how it works. He placed the band on his palm and extended it to Julia, motioning for her to pick it up. It was much larger than his mom's wrist, and Michael wondered how it would fit. She stared at Peter's large hand and said, "But I don't see anything yet." "Oh, but you will. You have to reach out for it, and once you touch it, your eyes will be opened and it will come to you." She tentatively extended her hand. When her fingers made contact with the thin bracelet, there was a soft click. She jerked her hand back, gasped, and said, "Oh my goodness, there it is! That is amazing!" Peter nodded. "Okay, now touch it again, and it will authenticate and encircle your wrist." When she did, there was a double click, and the band floated onto her wrist and shrank to fit. Peter pointed to the band and said, "The first click was an indication that the band recorded your essence signature, and now will only work for you. The double click meant that it authenticated that signature, and now the illuminator band is engaged. Your eyes should be open to the essence world around you now." Her eyebrows lifted, and she said, "I can see your ring, Michael. I've never experienced anything like this. It's like there's a new world out there that we didn't know about." Peter's eyes went down to his own ring, and his countenance fell. His ring was different. It had an engraving of 2 crossed Aladdin swords. The thick commander touched his ring, and his radiant uniform appeared again. "Okay, Michael, please get down on one knee." But Michael hadn't been paying close attention, and as he went down, he nearly fell. He felt like a klutz, but when he gazed up at the commander, the majestic figure just smiled and continued, "Don't worry, it will all make sense soon. When the people of this kingdom desire to be a knight or matron, they must live by a special oath. I will now have you take that oath, and will advance you to the rank of a squire. As I mentioned before, this will allow you to prepare to take the next step and eventually enter the order as an apprentice." He raised his right arm and continued, "Please raise your right arm to the square like this, and repeat after me. I, Michael Brenlin, promise to live from this day forward by the oath of Lithegol. I will show love to my king and all others who may be in need. I will stand for honor, cleanliness, freedom, and justice. I will serve the order of Lithegol and will follow my knight and matron leaders. I will fulfill my mission assignments with courage, using the power of solace. I will choose good over evil and will heed the warnings that come to me. I will fight for Lithegol and for the Solite people of all worlds with all my might." As Michael repeated the words to the oath, a rush of calmness and self-assurance told him that this was what he was supposed to be doing, and it was right. Peter touched the amulet, reached his right hand out, and placed it on top of Michael's head. Michael felt an influx of warmth and comfort. Peter motioned for him to stand, and as he did, Michael noticed that the crystal in the center of his ring and the ring band itself were no longer pulsing. They now emitted a steady red glow. He thought more about why that could be. This must mean that he was a squire now. He was relieved that he was beginning to connect the dots. Peter followed his gaze to the ring and said, "Do you see the engraving on the ring? That is the design used for all prime tokens. We are in the times of the Great Gathering, which means that Earth, being the prime core world, is a melting pot for many of the most powerful warriors from all the living realms of Lithegol." He pointed to the etching of the crossed swords on his ring and said, "These are the engravings on the tokens from my home realm, Hercule. We are guardians. We guard the fortresses, strongholds, and some select Solite beings when needed. Ours is a special role that we have accepted gladly since the beginning of time. It amuses me that those on your world have written a story of a strong hero with a similar name, this Hercules character. My guess is that someone familiar with Lithegol was involved with the creation of that story. Michael's mom had an inquisitive expression on her face and said, "Wait, if there is a system of knights protecting us, then how did the Legion take over our government?" Peter's long face fell, and he said, "That is a very good question, Julia. We are betrayed at the highest level. Unfortunately, one of my heroes, the overseer knight from my realm, turned on the order, and in the year 2022, he orchestrated a Legion invasion of grand proportion on Earth. Our forces were caught unprepared. Tharok had done his homework and was able to infiltrate the United States government with his Legion forces before we knew what hit us." Julia's expression was one of sympathy and shock. "So what happened to Tharok?" "First of all, it is important to understand that Gadon is the essence power of darkness, evil, and all that is destructive in the universe. Unfortunately, Tharok allowed Arubamir, one of the most powerful Gadagons, to take him over, and he became an extremely powerful Sulgon. A Sulgon is an embodied being that has allowed a dark Gadite essence being called a Gadagon to take him or her over. Sulgons are a hybrid creature that take on characteristics of the host and the parasitic Gadagon. Unfortunately, you know exactly who Tharok is. He has now taken on a new identity here on Earth as David Sampson, the President of the United States." Michael's mom gasped. More pieces of the puzzle were falling into place in Michael's mind. So President Sampson was the Legion leader who also formed the United Legion organization? Peter was shaking his head now. "Tharok was a mentor to me. I saw him do incredible things with the power of Solus and help many people during his lifetime. I just don't understand what happened. It all went bad in 2022 when Tharok captured Braster, a Herculean senior commander who joined the Legion and became their leader back in 1865. Up until the time he was captured, Braster had been sneaking Sulgons and Gadagons into Herculean Prime and had become very powerful. The theory is that Braster offered Tharok the Legion leader position in return for his freedom. Tharok was already having problems with the Order, so the timing was perfect for him to be drawn in. Tharok thought that he should have been made captain of Lithegol, since he was the overseer for Hercule, the most dominant guardian realm in the kingdom. He had also become frustrated with all of the lawless and out-of-control Herculeans, and believed that a system of government that reigned over the people and forced order would protect them and make ruling easier. The tipping point was the influence of Arubamir, who was extremely persuasive and powerful. Peter wiped his cheek discreetly and continued. Tharok allowed the thirst for power and dominion to drag him down and ultimately ruin him. I have vowed to myself not to let this happen to me. It is a frightening example of how even someone high up in the Order can fall. Michael, sensing how hard this topic was for Peter to talk about, asked a question to change the subject. "So you mentioned that there are different races of people in the different realms. How do they not stand out in a crowd?" Peter had shrugged off the solemn expression and said, I should say we, are changed when we enter that realm through a realm portal. The portal alters us so that we take the form of a native for the living core world in question, in this case, Earth. A visitor can only be changed to his or her natural state through the power of Solus. It actually happens automatically whenever a knight or matron engages their armor. Michael's mom had been watching quietly and said, "What about women? Can I become a squire too?" Peter turned to Julia, nodded, and said, "Yes, you can. So Michael's situation is a complete exception to the norm. Normally a Mentor Sentry is sent to pick up a squire candidate when that individual has had their anointing day and has been sufficiently prepared to receive their call. Not everyone that turns 16 is chosen right away, and most don't even realize the anointing event has occurred or that anything has changed. Those that have been prepared are called when their leaders send a ribbon of Solus that extends from a porticon and summons them to a particular fortress. The Mentor Sentry escorts them, using the ribbon as a pathway to the closest porticon and then to the fortress in question. There they receive the necessary training to earn a ring and become a squire. I've never seen it happen the way it did for Michael. It's interesting to me that my son Sylvan's advancement was the only other I've seen where he was made a squire without finishing a training cycle. It makes me truly curious about both of your futures in the Order of Lithegol." Michael felt like he was in a dream, listening to a powerful figure who was pledging to help him and talking about realms and worlds and orders and destinies that he had no idea about. And what was this boundless energy boiling inside of him since he was made a squire? His senses were all in overload mode. He was overwhelmed with stimuli, and his mind seemed to be racing with memories and information. Michael was trying to rein it all in. He had been made a squire by a glowing visitor that had arrived in a beam of light through the ceiling, and he had learned that he was to be a knight in some order within a kingdom where the legendary Arthur was one of its leaders, and he was filled with a new unknown power that he didn't know how to control. He thought about what Nimue had said he was to accomplish. It had to be tied to the order and his future as a knight. His head hurt from the weight of it all, and part of him wanted to just run and escape from it. Peter must have sensed his struggle because he grabbed his hand, and a wave of blue solace flowed from his hand into Michael's. After that, the anxiety was gone, and he felt a ripple of calmness roll over him. "That was the power of solace," Peter said. "It can provide comfort to a troubled heart, among many other things. Don't worry, Michael. You will not be alone on your quest. I will do all within my power to help you, and we will get your father back." "Thank you," Michael said. Peter jerked his head as if an alarm had gone off in his mind and said, "But you will learn more about all this later. We must leave right away. It is near midday, and this is the best time to travel because there are fewer Legion punks, enemies, out and about."